My last video about missiles was by far the longest one I have ever made. So long, I in fact decided it was time to bite the bullet and try my hand at video editing instead of suffering by doing things in a single long take. This made the process of actually creating the video take about 2 weeks, while I learned the ins and outs of the software I decided to make use of. Coupled with all the revisions to the script over time, it is perhaps inevitable that mistakes and omissions crept in, some of which I realized after the video went live, and I was able to finally relax and think about what I'd said. Although I feel like the errors are fairly minor and obvious to veterans of the game, the video is intended to inform new players about game mechanics that are important to understand, so I wanted to address these problems sooner rather than later. Thus, this follow-up video. One detail I neglected to mention is that direct guidance activates a missile's seekers immediately. In contrast, cruise seekers will be engaged once the missile is near the target's predicted location, assuming it's fired directly or using a TRP, or upon reaching the final waypoint. This difference is important to understand as it will impact a missile's behavior significantly. Enemy ships and missile encounters during their flight to a target could very well be detected by a direct guidance missile's seeker and engaged. On a related note, jamming will only begin to affect radar seekers once they are activated. This means that it will affect the seekers to direct guidance missiles immediately, but only impact cruise guidance missiles once the seekers have activated, either after they reach their last waypoint or when they are near the target's predicted location. If you are using a radar seeker on a hybrid with a validator, you must set it to reject unvalidated targets to avoid premature staging when jammed. This was a detail I inadvertently left out because it seemed obvious to me, but in retrospect it's important enough that I should have mentioned it. As you can see in the example, firing a radar seeker with a validator set to accept unvalidated targets will cause the missile to stage immediately. This is because the validator informs the seeker that the target is invalid. However, since there are no valid targets, the seeker chooses to engage on its own initiative. Changing the setting to reject unvalidated targets will prevent premature staging. The seeker will still chase after phantom jamming targets, but it will not actually stage until a valid target is detected. A dual seeker will prevent the radar seeker from chasing after phantom targets, even if the radar seeker is the primary seeker. Similarly, an ARED sensor, either in seeker or validator mode, will not prevent a radar seeker from staging a hybrid missile prematurely due to jamming. I never thought to mention this, as it was never a missile I would consider using. It just seemed like a bad idea. So bad, in fact, I decided it would be a funny joke to show the design in my last video near the end. Although I don't specifically talk about the missile design, I realize this joke probably isn't as funny for someone who tries to replicate that missile, since it is rather expensive. Now that I've made this, I'm sure someone will point out some other mistakes I've made, but these are the biggest ones I managed to find on my own. There are definitely people with way more time in this game, with more practical gameplay experience to boot, so if anything I say here gets contradicted by other players, it's a fair bet that I'm the one that's in error. Regardless, I appreciate having the chance to clear some of that up, and I hope to have another video out before too terribly long. Have a nice day.